and last year I'm local. I'm from work in the Anaheim Union High School District. Last year I received the C-Learn and Q Online Teacher of the Year, and then I won the National Online Teacher of the Year in March. So it was really, it's been exciting. And one of the exciting things about it for me is that I am really passionate about online blended learning. I think it really has the power to transform education if done well. And so my friends and family are really happy because I have another audience to talk about online and blended learning, and most of the time they want to listen. So they're happy that they're not my only audience anymore. And so it's been exciting this past year talking about best practices in online and blended learning. A little bit about myself. As I said, I work for the Anaheim Union High School District, which you might know is a large district right here in Southern California. We have 32,000 students in our district, speak approximately 49 different languages, covers 49 square miles, I believe, 46 square miles. So we have a very large, very diverse district. East and west side of our district, ethnically, socioeconomically, are very different. And so we've seen a lot of benefits for online and blended learning in our district. A little bit about me is I've taught online courses. I piloted them in my district about 8-9 years ago. And the district's been very supportive of me in that endeavor. And I've just, I had a master's degree online through Pepperdine and really felt that online learning, if done well, and that is in incorporating community, project-based learning, collaboration, those things that are essential, I think, for student learning reflection into an online class, that there's a lot of potential for high school students. And so they let me do that, and I was nice because I'm also an elective teacher, so that's nice, right? I'm a business teacher because I kind of fly under the radar. If I would have been an English teacher, probably would have been different. They would have probably never let me do this, would be my guess. So I got to do a lot of experimenting and really establishing reading and practicing in online learning. And then about 5 years ago, I believe it was, we started a district-wide program. And so I was able at that time to lead our teachers in developing their curriculum and developing a district-wide model. And we're a regular comprehensive high school. We have all the issues that regular high schools have, union issues and all those different schools, different cultures and barriers and all of those things that we have in our high schools. But it's been exciting to see over the past few years just the development of this online program. And what we do is we develop our own curriculum. And when I started, I said that's something we have to do. We have to develop our own curriculum, and it has to include these things, and we have to. And so we've been doing that. And the teachers that we have are so on board and excited about online learning. Not only excited about online learning, but excited about the professional learning community that we've developed. And it's exciting because we're continually revising, reflecting, and incorporating best practices into our online classes, and even develop friendships in that we hadn't known each other before. So that's a little bit about me. What I want to do today is I'm going to talk about when I was listening to the keynote speakers today, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I believe and kind of what I'm talking about today. But I'm going to talk about some of the challenges we have facing education. I want to talk about some of the 21st century skills and habits of mind, those things that are at the core of our Common Core state standards, and then strategies that we can incorporate in our classes that will help to promote. I have to be careful, I'm not supposed to walk around, so try to stay in one place. So just stop me if will promote those dispositions and skills that our students need to be successful in the 21st century, and how we can do that in the online environment. So, have you ever seen this in the classroom? I observe a lot of classes. I go around, or maybe your own class. I think I've seen it in my own class. So what do we see here? What is going on? The students are sleeping. The teacher's excited. And why might the teacher be excited? She's wearing a skirt. She's what? I'm sorry to hear you.
I said she's wearing a skirt because I can't see any other reason to be excited.
Yes, but do you think maybe she's excited about her content? She might have prepared this lesson. She might have spent Right? Yeah. She spent hours preparing this lesson maybe, and she's up and wow, this is exciting. These are really exciting. But what about the students? Do they feel the same way? Not so much. And why might the students not feel the same way? What are some reasons our students might not be engaged in school today? It's not relevant, a big key. Not the right pace. Not motivation, not background knowledge, and maybe those core cognitive skills that we need to be successful. So do we find those things? Bad teaching, yeah, that's right there. And they talked about that this morning, right? Delivering information. And so we look at a teacher-directed classroom versus that student-centered classroom. And we could say that this is definitely a student-directed classroom. I mean, a teacher-directed classroom, not student-directed. Students are asleep, teacher is excited, but she's the one delivering the information. We don't see the students interacting, right, or researching, talking, presenting. All those things would indicate a student-centered classroom. So as we look at online learning, and we have a choice with online learning. We could take this model and we could put it into online learning, right? We can videotape ourselves. And we can, it's like, videotape myself and blah, 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 blah. And the students watch it and complete a quiz or something. Or we can have a student-directed model where our students are researching, working in groups, solving problems, and working together, collaborating online. So we look at just a few of the challenges we have facing education. And with my district, we have a lot of long-term English learners. The biggest challenge we have, long-term English learners, those are those students that aren't in our EL classes, but have not gained academic English. Maybe they were born in the United States, first generation, but don't have, and we've got millions of them in this country. And if we don't address that problem, educating these students are definitely not going to be career ready, and they're not going to be able to succeed in college. Another problem we have is poverty. In our last census, 2011, 1 in 5 students live in poverty. And I know in our district, I work at the district office, and someone was doing looking at the number of homeless students in our district. The west side, Cypress, very upper middle class, Cypress High School, I think there was 200 and some students that were homeless at Cypress High School. Now, my guess is most of those teachers do not realize that there's 200 and some homeless students in their classes. And my guess is not in their classes, but in their school, on the east side, we have large pockets of poverty, and the increase in homelessness increases across the district. But with those students, 1 in 5 living in poverty under the age of 18, that's 16 million students, they come to school with a deficit in vocabulary that stays with them. And that vocabulary deficit is really the core that we need to learn. It's that building block that those students have. So it's really a challenge that we have in education, is that we have so many students that don't have those core cognitive skills that they need to succeed, and we've got them in our classes, and then what do we do? Another thing, the 21st century skills that we talked about today. So the main ones, the P21, Partnership for 21st Century Skills. We have communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. There was a recent study by Microsoft, Pearson, and Gallup that was in May of this year, and what they said was they did a survey, and they found that there was a direct correlation between students learning 21st century skills in school or in their lives and their success in the workplace. And they said that our students their work performance would greatly increase if they were taught experiential problem-based learning that incorporates collaborative online tools and 21st century skills into our curriculum. But how often do we see that in our schools? Real project-based learning. I mean, the real thing. We see projects, but usually projects are like an add-on. It's kind of like a summative assessment. They learn the content and then they do a little project. But that's not project-based learning, is it? Project-based learning is where they really learn through that project. So it is something that's real, and it should be meaningful and deep. But we don't see a lot of that. We don't see a lot of critical thinking and problem solving a lot of times in our classes. We also have, how many of you have heard of habits of mind? So yes, and we see the Common Core standards. We have the ELA habits and the mathematics habits. And you know, this, when you look at those are very similar. When you look at Kalick and Costa, you're familiar with their 16 dispositions, habits of mind? I think that's where they got them from. But it's really interesting because those are things like persisting, things like there are 16 dispositions, metacognition, thinking about your thinking, for students to be able to adjust their performance or their thinking, their strategies based on reflecting on their thinking. So what we look at, those are very similar to soft skills. Those things that, they're just 16 dispositions that successful people need in order to succeed in life, and that have been identified. And those aren't usually part of our regular curriculum, are they? You know, we teach content mostly, but we don't really talk about these. But there's study after study that says that employers value these soft skills or habits of mind, that they're more crucial for success for their entry-level employees than technical skills. For that that employee to come to work on time, to be able to get along with others, to be able to work in teams, to be able to solve problems are more important a lot of times than those technical skills. But a lot of times we don't address these. One of the things that started exciting me about online learning, it's when I said, okay, there's this, and all of a sudden I always do all of these surveys and forums and ask students, what did you like best about the class? What did you like least about the class? What can be improved? And what I started hearing was, what I like best about the class is that I learned to be responsible. I learned to manage my time. I learned to be organized. I learned to be what they would call a self-directed learner, except they didn't really use those words, but and I thought, wow, this is really good, because there's a benefit here that I hadn't thought of, because we always think, oh, well, kids can't do that, but they're developing these skills that they need, these habits of mind. And what I've been doing is trying to work on, these are the Kalick and Costa from their site, the habits of mind, just a little graphic of that. So I've been working on, in fact, this year, I forgot to mention, I do the technology. I'm the district curriculum, educational technology curriculum specialist, but I'm also teaching 2 online classes. One of the things I love to do is I love to teach, and I just love it. And it's one of those, and they're online, but I just love it. And so I'm still doing that. And one of the things that I thought this year is, I want to really work on this, developing the habits of mind. And so I did some, was kind of interesting, and I think it's working very well. And I'll go through some of the strategies in a minute that I've used. So when we look at that online learning, and when we look at online learning, we need a paradigm shift in education, and that paradigm shift needs to include online learning. Because if we're just creating online classes, I talked to somebody, a teacher last week, oh yeah, I want to do an online teacher because I'm just going to put I already have all my worksheets and all my stuff, I'm going to put it online. And it's like, oh my gosh, no. So, it's that paradigm shift that we need in education. We need our students to collaborate, to learn how to work in teams, and to collaborate online, because that's a job skill they're going to need. That's really a skill, a life skill that they're going to need. To incorporate literacy, and that's one of the things that I've done, and kind of deliberately I teach. The course I teach online, and I started doing this. I taught accounting for a while online. I've taught everything, but I decided to, a few years ago, have you heard of the VITA program? It's volunteer income tax assistance. Okay, so what my students do is they learn tax law online. Now, how exciting is that? Tax law online. So they learn tax law online, and they do that until tax time, and then they take certification tests, and then we have community tax days where they prepare tax returns for members of our community. And so, it's so cool, because what they do is they learn, but they're learning tax law, so we're going through learning, and at the beginning, they've never seen a 1040 form, most of them, and so I'm saying, okay, just calm down, because we're going to go through this, and you can't start, we got to, how much background I have, so they're kind of freaked out, but they learn so much, but they need to learn how to access that information. How are they going to, the vocabulary, it's all just new, and there's so much of it. So incorporating those literacy strategies into all our courses. And that's also part of our Common Core State Standards, right? So we're all literacy teachers. And I knew that a long time ago because I taught elective class, and I would get all these students, and I could see right away there's a whole bunch of students that need extra support. So what are we going to do for those students along with the students, to give extended activities for those other students? So when I look at online learning, or any type of classroom, actually, the most important fundamental element of that classroom is community. And one of the things that I see with teachers that are successful in online learning, I can go through their classroom and I can look at the number of Fs they have, and I can see the number, and I can look at their classroom. If community is built in that classroom, that number of Fs is going to be low. If it hasn't been, it's going to be high. And it's just something, I knew it was important. This last year, I learned that it was really important. And and it really changed the way I intentionally build community in my class. I'm a lot more purposeful about it now. What this student did is he sent me an email, and I remember because it was in December of last year, sends me an email, and he's in regular classes all day long. And he has one online class with me. He had online web page design, which I was teaching last year. And he sends me an email, and he said, he shared some personal problems that he was going through that were, really touching. I was like, it was heartbreaking. And he said, the only one that knows about this is my counselor at school, who I knew very well, and you. And he said, I just wanted to share with you. He says, it's funny that I feel more connected with you than the face-to-face teachers that I see every single school day. And he said, he was getting an A in my class. And he said, I'm struggling in all my other classes. And he was getting Fs in all of his other classes. But he was getting a solid A in my class. He was doing everything he was supposed to do. And he said, I like how you teach. When he got done, he said, I like how you teach. And I thought about that for a little while, and I thought, I think what he means really is that, because, I was just doing my online class, right? But I think what he said was, or what he meant was, since I've connected with you, since we have that connection, I'm able to access the curriculum. And I thought, I believe that. I believe that intuitively, that our students need to connect. Many times they don't have an individual, an adult to connect with. Their parents are working, kids have parents that are divorced or die, or all these things that happen to them, and a lot of times they don't have an adult to connect with, and they need that. So after, and I built, I knew community was important before that, but I've been a lot more intentional about it. And then I also thought, it's kind of counterintuitive, because you had all these, you hear people say, well, in online classes, you don't have, and I said, face-to-face classes, this kid hadn't made any connections with his teacher. He was going in these classes every day and yet felt no connection, but was able to make that connection online. So we look at how we develop community online, and I gave you a few handouts there, but when we talk about community, there's two things. There is developing that connection between the teacher and the student, and that's vital. I'm very purposeful about developing that connection. I've got some strategies I've used that I get excited about, because I think they work pretty well. But some of the things I do is I highlight their works, exemplary student work. I just put it in the announcements. The discussions, maybe a couple posts from the week, I'll highlight. Jane, good post on the good thoughts or ideas about whatever. I use an informal tone. Academic language, but an informal tone in my communication that's warm and engaging for the students, so that they hear that. So I use personal pronouns in my, my announcements. Sometimes I'll do a little cartoon or something. I include synchronous and asynchronous meetings. So we use Blackboard Collaborate, and I think that's essential once a week to have those Blackboard Collaborate meetings. Also, and this is something that we don't often think about when we think about connecting with students, is assessment. And I think assessment is important because the students need to know that you want them to succeed. And some of the ways that I do that is formative assessment, is I do what I call a learning journal. Now, all of our online teachers do this learning journal. And to me, it's the most important element of our online class is our learning journal. And what they do is they do it every week. Our assignments open up on Monday, and these courses are all online. I have students from across the district. Open up on Monday, they're due on Sunday. They're supposed to post on Monday. They create a calendar, their assignments for the week, and they kind of plan when they expect to do them. They don't have to stick to their plan. I'm not going to check them, but at least they've looked at the assignments. They have a plan. Then every single school day, I give them a discussion stem, like a little thing. Today I was successful because da da da, or today I wasn't successful, but tomorrow I will da 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 da. Just so they're, I have them fill in that every school day. At the end of the week, they do a reflection on what they learned, what they don't understand. If I don't do anything else, every single one of those reflections I answer every Monday. They submit them Sunday. I do not accept those late. That's one thing, I don't accept discussions or learning journals late because it kind of defeats the purpose of the learning journal. But I respond to every one of those. And as far as the formative assessment, we talk about, you can give quizzes, you can give these other things, but you don't hear them thinking. You don't hear if they're frustrated. You can see in the classroom if a student is frustrated, but you can't see them online. I can hear from their learning journal if they're frustrated. One week, I don't know, it's a few months ago, there was, I could just hear, it was itemized deductions. That's enough to frustrate anyone, right? They learned the standard deduction, and now we have itemized deductions, and they don't understand and I could hear that in all of them. I said, okay. So I was able to address that frustration and say, you're not going to understand it all right now. We're going to spend some time, and when we get done, you're going to understand it in the next few weeks, but it's a process that you're learning about. So I can hear that in the learning journal. I also, this year, really worked on intentionally building in those habits of mind. And what I do in week 1 is kind of an overview of the class. So we do the same, all of our online teachers, we do the same week 1 on introduction to, how to navigate the class, yada, yada, yada. And then week 2 really starts whatever curriculum we have for each individual class. I start out what I call it a learning journal, it's a learning strategies scavenger hunt. It's not really a scavenger hunt because I give them the sites they go to, but, and what I do is I want them to, in that scavenger hunt, I want them to know why. So we talk about relevance. Every single assignment that I put on there, in the overview, I put why they need to know this. This is important for you because, I don't use those, but the habits of mind. These are dispositions, these are skills that you're going to need to succeed in school and the workplace. They're important for you to be successful. If you don't have these skills, you're not going to succeed. So do they want to learn those? Do they think they're important? I had a few nights ago, I had a speaker in my Blackboard Collaborate from Irvine Valley College, and he was saying the most important thing you need to be successful, what I look for in an employee and the most important skill you need is emotional intelligence. And so he's talking about emotional intelligence, and I kind of chatted. I go, habits of mind, And then we got done. One of my students said, you think of everything for us to help support us. And I just thought, isn't that sweet? Because they want to have those skills, but oftentimes they just haven't learned that those things are important. What is perseverance? And they'll say, this is a weakness of mine. What can you do to improve? You don't just have to do everything at the last minute. You could have some strategies to improve that in your life. What is your plan to improve that? And so so that's part of their learning journal is to reflecting on those 16 habits of mind. What I do is I divide them up so there's 16 of them. So I thought, well, I could do one every 2 weeks. And so they spend 2 weeks kind of reflecting on the same one. And incorporating those in the learning journal. And it's really neat to read their thoughts on those habits of mind and knowing that they're important. But I also include, one of the things that saved my life is self-assessment. And because what I was doing is, first of all, I work way too much, but all I was doing was like, oh, I'm grading, like, no, oh, like, whoa, this is awful. And so, then, not last summer before that, I'm walking around, I live like by a reservoir, I'm walking around the reservoir, I go, this is what I need to do. I need to use the wiki. We use haiku. I'll use the wiki, have the students, this is in my tax class, have the students each do a personal portfolio, right? And every week they can put their notes, they can put vocabulary, all this stuff, and do a self-assessment on it. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I do that so it'll work? Anyway, so I figured it out. And so what they do is I give them a detailed rubric. They do their self-assessments every week for their portfolio, and then it goes automatically in the grade book. Now, do I check it? Yes. And I do a grade myself periodically, but I don't have to do it every week. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to focus on the learning journals, the discussions, connecting with my students, and being present. And it also, I found out, with my students are doing a lot better because they like it. They're more connected when they're self-assessing themselves. And then periodically, I have them do a peer review, so they're looking at each other's portfolios. I have a few screenshots there. It's tax stuff, so it's not real exciting, but kind of. Okay, so then we have student-to-student community connections, and also that is important. And so I want to make sure that I'm developing that learning community for my students. One of the things I do is I purposely build in the community building discussions right before Thanksgiving. What are you thankful for and why, and what do you do? And they love that. I put the students in small groups, so I don't have a discussion of 40 students. I might put them in 10 to 12 students in a group, and they kind of stay in those groups throughout the semester, so that they really get to know those students in their discussion groups. They do peer critiques of each other's portfolios. They learn how to critique. I don't know if you've seen Austin's Butterfly. I think I might have it on my website. But it's really a good little third grade teacher that uses this, shows you how to critique, and the students watch it, and it's a really good little overview of how to give meaningful critiques. Also, I use a help discussion, and that help discussion is just for students to respond to other students' questions. And I tell them, if you have a question for me, don't put it in here because I don't look in here. But the principal looks in here periodically, which he's never looked in there, but he could, just so every once in a while I might look in there, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do it, or but. That's a way for students. I don't put like one of those water cooler things up. I wouldn't do that in high school because you might, you don't want to know what they did on the weekend or whatever. You just want to know if they can do the assignment. So I try to keep myself out of trouble. Okay, the other skill that our students need, 21st century skill, is our students need to be able to collaborate. And one of the real benefits that we have of online technology is the power of collaboration. So we want to make sure that we're including that in our courses. One of the things that was a real plus, I taught at Cypress High School. And so I taught at Cypress High School. Well, now that I have my, we went district-wide, most of my customers are from Oxford Academy, Cypress High School, and Anaheim High School. I've got a big following now. Once you get a couple and then you start getting some momentum, then I have a big following from Anaheim High School and Cypress and Oxford. And if you know anything about that community, those are two different communities, two different worlds that never meet. Those students, for the most part, do not know each other, a lot of misconceptions about one another, and one of the exciting things, and all of our teachers have said that, well, a few of them have said this to me, is that the exciting thing about this is that we're getting those students working in collaborative groups, and those barriers, those misunderstandings are being broken, they're just kind of falling away. And I went to the career fair. We have this big career fair at the Anaheim Convention Center, and since I do the accounting, pathway, I go to the career fair. And one of my students, one of the groups came to see me, and there's one from Oxford, one from Cyprus, and one from Anaheim. And they were getting together and having a good time. And I thought, isn't that great? This is, it was an added benefit that our students are learning to collaborate, that our students on the east side are thinking, I could go to an Ivy League school too. I am just as smart as that kid that I think is so brilliant. Like all the kids at Oxford, they must be brilliant. No, I'm just as smart as they are. I can hold my own. And the same thing with the other students. So collaboration is important to include in an online class in all of our courses, but we know it's one of those skills that our students are going to need to be successful in college, in the workplace. And then we look at 21st century skills. One of the things, when we look at collaboration strategies, one of the things that I do is I use Google Documents for group work for them to develop a team agreement. And it's because they set their team norms, they work together, and develop that team agreement. If you're going to do online groups, allow extra time, because you're not going to have a group work in 2 weeks. If they're going to do it's different than the classroom. So you're going to have to allow extra time, but it's well worth it. Project-based learning, I totally support project-based learning if it's done well. You can do it in the online class. We have kind of in the first semester, they do some small little group things. I have them do a little team agreement. They work in this week. They're looking at each group, but they're just discussion groups. They're looking at different scenarios, tax scenarios. They're all tricky. And what they have to do is their first instinct, because they've learned the rules, so they kind of know them, but they don't know that they don't know them as well as they that there are some parts that they don't quite understand yet. Said, I want you to look at each one of these scenarios, and I want you to go to the tax publications, and I want you to reference where you find the answer. And da-da-da. So they did a good, the first one, oh no, the filing status is this, and they can, they can qualify for the earned income credit. Well, okay, one more time, go back and look. And then after they checked, so they're going back, and then each of them responds if they disagree or agree and why. And so they're kind of forming that. Second semester, they'll work in wikis and groups and really develop a real project online. So they'll do that second semester. I love the wiki in our learning management system. Allows me or the students to have individual portfolios, or we can do group portfolios, group work in there. Peer and self-evaluation are important, and just making sure that we incorporate those in our online classes. Habits of mind. Another thing I do in that week 2 in the scavenger hunt learning strategies that I do in week 2 is I have my students go through and look at note-taking skills. What do good notes look like? So they go to some sites, they write down what do good notes look like, what do they not, because they're used to just copying everything and putting it in a note. And then I have them look at different note-taking tools, Cornell Notes, outlines, some of those like Bubble Us, some of the online tools that are available. So look at all of these. Look at your learning style, see which one, and so they do all that. And then they choose whichever note-taking, however they want to take notes. And some will say, I really feel I like to do an outline. And I like to do an outline myself. I said, I understand. And some of them will use a bubble, and some of them will just use graphics and different things. I said, I don't care. You do your notes. You just have to know the material. You need to, later on, when you're preparing for your certification test, you're going to want to refer back to your notes so that you want them to be meaningful for you. So I make sure, and then I also have them do vocabulary every week. And that's really important because our students, well, particularly when they're talking about all these words they don't know, but in all of our courses, there's a lot of words they don't know. And so to make sure that we're purposely building in vocabulary for that vocabulary development piece, what I do is I say, okay, here's some Web 2.0 tools you can use. I love Padlet. If you've ever used Padlet before, it used to be called Wallwisher, and then all of a sudden name changed. But what it is an online bulletin board. It allows you to I can use it myself in my announcement as like an exit slip, or students can use it if they want to. They can post. I'll show you. I have an example of a student's vocabulary. They use Padlet, so they can use they're supposed to put their graphic and the and then use the word in a sentence in their own, in their own words. But they can use whatever Web 2.0 tool they want. I don't care. So give them some choice. That's also important with students for the outcomes. To give them some choice in their assignments. It's, that's okay. It doesn't have to be the way I would do it. And then writing is important. One of the things that's really important with long-term English learners is to have a lot of low-stakes writing. A lot of low-stakes writing. They don't have to keep writing research papers all the time, right? So we need to have them practice language. One of my students said a few years ago, I said, what do you like best about online learning? It was a little prompt I had. And he said, he's a Vietnamese student, and he said, what I like best about online learning is I get to participate in discussions and no one makes fun of my accent, which he said happens all the time in my face-to-face classes. Now, how sad is that? But that student was able to have a voice and feel safe. So it's important. Those online discussions are very important for our classes. And to know that our English learners can think. We don't have to give them low-level questions, which we see happen a lot in our English learner classes maybe, right? We can give them higher-level questions, and they're also able to then have some meaningful discussions with other students. One of the things, I did this year, I had a grading rubric, I had grammar in there, and I was like, and I never graded them on grammar, and I thought, why don't I just take that out, and what I'll do is put in language registers. Now, how many of you have heard of language registers? I don't know if you, okay, yeah. So language registers developed in 1967 by Jews, and I know when I got my credential, I've taught for 16 years, so second career, I don't know, third or fourth career, something like that. But I went to Cal State Fullerton, and Dr. Montano Harmon I remember taking my, what was the class called? It was that language development class. She talked about language registers. So I was like looking up language registers. So in that learning strategies scavenger hunt that they do in week 2, I include habits of mind and note-taking, all these different things. I include language registers, what they are and why they're important. Because they don't know. Okay, we have like the casual register. That's what they're used to talking to. I tell them the casual register is okay. That's how you talk to your friends. It's okay, as long as you're talking to your friends. But what we're going to do in the classroom in our discussions is we're going to practice the consultative register. That's the register used in business. That's the register used in education. And I also noticed that in our younger teachers don't know that either. They're like, don't capitalize the first letter of the word sentence. I'm like going, what is that about? I don't know. So, so this is the register. That's going to help you be successful. If you want to be successful in business, you can't talk. You don't want to talk in the casual register. And then we talk about the formal register used for presentations or, and the frozen register like I pledge allegiance to the flag. So to talk about those language registers, why they're important for them to know. And you know what? In their learning journals, I said to them, I learned how to talk that I didn't know before. I didn't know that I was supposed to, that there were different, that there were these different registers. And to hear them think, that is important information that I never knew. We were keeping it secret, so the secret is out. I also, in my discussions, I want to make sure my students are responding in meaningful ways. So I agree or disagree does not cut it. If you've seen accountable talk in the classroom, very powerful strategy. And one of the things I did is I took, and you can Google accountable talk or these, and their discussion stems, and I did a little PowerPoint, a little Google presentation, and then I just embed it in the learning management system right next to their discussion. Okay, I want them to use, particularly for English learners, really important, our long-term English learners, they're developing language, to give them stems so that they know, okay, here's some ideas to help you respond to those questions. Can you explain that further? Can you give some evidence? What would it look like if you disagreed with that? Where would you find evidence for that? So to use those discussion stems in the responses. And I've really seen the quality of their discussions improve. And I go through there and I look at their discussions, and I really want my discussions, I don't want to be the main voice of the discussions because, oh, those discussions. No, you want the students to question one another. I might go in there like when my students were, they were all kind of going off the wrong way, and I said, okay, why don't you go back and look at the tax resources one more time. Talk about this a little more. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for a little while to see if they can't struggle and get the correct answer first. And I'm still not going to give them the correct answer. I'm going to, they're still not quite there, one of the groups. So those are some of my students from a few years ago, so cute. But this is from one of our IRS tax days. And one of the things that I love is that the students not only learn, like one of my students said, schools should offer more classes like this to better educate and engage their students. And I thought, this is federal tax law online, and I'm really not that exciting. I don't videotape myself because I just don't even like it. But the students know that this is relevant, it's important. They've been given the tools, the scaffolding, so that they can learn the material, right? And so they step up, and this is an elective. I keep thinking I have to write the A through G thing and get it first, but haven't quite done that yet. So this is elective. They could take floral design and they would get the same units. But I have got 70 students. Lucky me, right? So, they're learning to interact with the public. They have to interview taxpayers. They sit down with them, they interview them, determine, and they have people in that say things that they know they're maybe not right sometimes, and they want them to do something, they'll come to me, I think they're lying, Ms. Citlau. And I'm going, shh, okay, just watch me, I'll handle this, But just life skills and how to deal with situations like that, how to deal with the public, how to interview them, how to, there's always situations when someone comes in with a tax problem that we've never seen before. I don't know. I don't know if we can do that return. So you're going to have to look it up. You're going to have to go through and find the resources and look it up. And that's what they do, and they work together to do that. Here's another picture. That is me, but I had red hair then with a few of my students. This is just a little screenshot of portfolio, not real exciting. What this is Google presentations. So what this student did is it goes through each of the vocabulary words so that's how they did theirs. You'll notice up in the right, there's, it says income, TG editable. What I do is I take the tax resources and then I break them apart and make them editable so that they can highlight and then add comments to their reading so that they're supposed to add questions and comment on their readings, and then they add those there. And so they have their notes. They have some graphics up at the top. And then you'll see here what they do is this was the first quarter. And each of those tabs there, this was the one on income. And there is one on filing status, exemptions, and then this semester we've gone on to itemized deductions and all the tax credits and all those things. So each of them. Here's another student, and I took this is the students the student also did a Google presentation, and up at the top was just a quote I saw from Edutopia when I was putting this together, and I thought it's so perfect. It says, "We think with words, therefore to improve thinking, teach vocabulary." And this is Padlet, and I love this. This student in his reflection said, "I am so proud." What are you most proud of in your portfolio? I'm proud of my vocabulary words. I thought, who says that? Okay, so these are the different filing statuses at the top. And so he used Padlet. If you see that, you just click on, it's like an online bulletin board. You can have video, graphics. And then I thought he did, his portfolio is really cool when you look at it. So second semester, they do project-based learning. They're going to do groups and determine what is a fair and equitable tax policy, what is fair, what is equitable. They've gone through tax law, which is a little cumbersome, right? And then they've gone through the tax days, which is even more cumbersome, trying to figure out, is this a valid, can this person claim their Uncle George as a dependent? Maybe not, maybe, So, and then they're going to look at a few different tax policies and then present one that they think is fair and equitable and why, and the impact that policy will have on individuals. This is just an example of a little, I love Glogster if you haven't used it. Just make sure you use the paid version, or sometimes you get some weird stuff coming up, but a group project on cyber citizenship. So I did that in my web page design class. So they made a website, they made a bunch of different, a poster on the elements of cyber citizenship. And Pixton cartoons, that was also cyber citizenship, a great tool I like. So I think online learning really has a lot of elements, if we use it correctly, to really prepare our students to be college and career ready. Those habits of mind are kind of embedded in online and blended learning if we make use of them and are purposeful about teaching them, and also those 21st century skills. Students to be able to think critically, to work in projects together, to use the online collaborative tools safely and responsibly, and to use those for students to work together. And and they love it. I mean, when I go into my class, it's, I see like there's an excitement, and it's tax law. So if I can do that for tax law, just think. If it's a regular class, it would, So we've got, when you're talking about relevancy, students want to know what they're learning is important, that it's something they need to know. And we all do, right? I mean, I don't want to learn a bunch of stuff I'm not going to, that I don't need to know. So I thank you very much. And if there are any questions, and then I have please, yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because we're going to start a business pathway, and the whole team idea is awesome. So do the kids actually do long form, or do they just do like the easy, or what do they do?
They do the 1040 long form. They don't do interviews. They start at the top of that form and they go down. So they have to determine what goes on line 7, what goes on line 8A. Do they qualify for a child tax credit, earned income credit? They do all that long form.
Taxes for their project,
for the community. They do real tax returns.
And how are they certified for that?
Through the IRS. The IRS has a program. On one of those, I have the IRS. We were an exemplary site last year by the IRS. I did a presentation for those, the students. At first, let me tell you, they didn't want, this was another IRS person, they didn't want us to do it. She's like, well, high school, and I was like, I don't see an age requirement. Well, we haven't had success, da, da, da. And then pretty soon I just kind of weaseled my way, and now they love us. They know these students are prepared, they know what they're doing, and the community loves us too. We have repeat customers. They call up, because I have a partnership with the United Way. They take our appointments. They call up the United Way and say, we want the kids to do our taxes. It's like, isn't that cool? I mean, it's very cool. Yeah, thank you. Yes?
Are the kids compensated in any way?
No. It's all community, and we can't take anything, or it would be an ethical, we all do it as volunteer work. Yeah. Except a grade. And what they say is, they realize, first of all, that there are a lot of people that are, I'm like looking at, I think that means I'm supposed to end, okay. There are a lot of people that are needy, and they're able to help needy people. Instead of them going to H&R Block and spending $300, we can do the same thing for them, and it'll be free. So, they say, what I liked, I got to give back to my community. And for students to have that experience and just that, to be able to do that. One student said last year, he says, I've never been able to really help anybody in a meaningful way before. And that was really, so I was like, oh, yeah. Session evaluation is there. So thank you very much.